If you have an old tree stump sitting in your yard, the question is simple: should you pay hundreds of dollars to make it disappear? Or can you remove it yourself without renting half the equipment in town? Today on Let Dusty Explains, we are going to break down the practical ways homeowners can deal with a stump. Some methods are fast, some are cheap, some take months, and some should only be discussed as history, not as something you try in your backyard. By the end of this, you should be able to look at the stump in your own yard and know which method actually fits your situation. The first thing to understand is that there is no single best stump removal method. A 6-inch stump beside a garden bed is not the same problem as a 30-inch oak stump near a driveway. A stump you need gone before a patio project is not the same as a stump hidden at the back of the yard, where time can do most of the work. So, before you choose a method, look at 3 things: the size of the stump where it sits and how fast you need it gone. Let's start with the obvious option, stump grinding. This is the fastest clean solution for most people. A stump grinder chews the wood down below the soil surface and turns it into chips. If the stump is large, close to a walkway, near a fence, or right where you need to level the ground, grinding can be worth the money. It is not always a scam. Sometimes paying for the right machine is cheaper than losing an entire weekend fighting the wrong stump. But here is the point. Most people miss the grinder is not the only answer. It is just the answer that gets advertised the most. If your stump is small enough, or if you are not in a hurry, there are cheaper ways to solve the problem. For small stumps, the oldest method is still one of the most reliable: dig, expose, cut, and rock. You dig a trench around the stump, usually about a foot or 2 away from the base, until you start finding the main roots. Then you cut those roots one by one with a pruning saw, axe loppers, or mattock. Once enough side roots are cut, you use the stump itself as a lever and rock it back and forth until the remaining roots loosen. The key is not brute strength. The key is exposing the roots before you fight them. A lot of people swing at the stump from above and get nowhere because the real grip is underground. The stump is not holding itself in place. The roots are. Once you reveal those roots and cut them in the right order, even a stubborn stump can start to move. This method makes the most sense for smaller stumps, younger trees, shrubs, and softwood species. It is slower with old hardwoods, deep taproots, or stumps wider than your boot. But for the right stump, a mattock and a couple of hours can save you a surprising amount of money. You will sweat, but you will also know exactly what happened underground. Now, if the stump is too big to dig out right away, the next smart move is to cut it low. A tall stump looks like a problem because it is always in your way. A low stump is much easier to hide, cover, drill, treat, or allow to decay. If the tree was cut leaving a foot or 2 above ground, bring it down closer to the soil line before choosing your next step. You can use a chainsaw for this, but this is where common sense matters. Do not let the chain touch dirt, rocks, or buried metal. Dirt can dull a chain almost instantly, and hidden nails or old fence wire can turn a simple cut into a dangerous surprise. Wear eye protection, ear protection gloves, boots, and chainsaw chaps if you have them. Keep the bar out of the soil, work slowly, and stop if the stump has metal in it, or if the cut feels unsafe. The goal is not to grind with a chainsaw. A chainsaw is for cutting wood, not dirt. Use it to bring the stump down low, then let another method finish the job. That might be digging, drilling, covering, rotting, or treating the wood so it breaks down over time. Another option for stumps with strong but reachable roots is a hand winch, also called a come-along. This is not magic, and it is not something you use by just hooking onto a stump and pulling wildly. The winch works best after you have already exposed and cut some of the main roots. At that point, steady pulling force can do what your back should not have to do. The setup matters. You need a strong anchor point like a healthy tree, a proper ground anchor, or a vehicle, only if it is safe and appropriate. The cable should be rated for the load, the hardware should be in good condition, and nobody should stand in line with a tensioned cable. A snapped cable can be extremely dangerous. This is controlled pressure, not a backyard tug of war. When used correctly, a winch gives you leverage. You tighten, pause, cut another root, tighten again, and let the stump tell you where it is still holding. If it moves, you keep working. If it refuses to move, you stop and expose more roots instead of forcing the tool past its limit. This is where stump removal becomes more like problem solving than muscle work. The cheap methods work best when you weaken the stump, step by step, cut it low, expose the roots, remove the easy holds first, and only then apply force. A stump that seems impossible at the beginning can become manageable once you stop treating it like one solid object and start treating it like a root system. Before moving into the slower methods, remember this simple rule. If you need the stump gone, today use mechanical force. Grind it, dig it, cut it, or pull it. But if you do not need it gone immediately, time becomes one of the cheapest tools you have. Wood wants to break down. Soil organisms, moisture, darkness, and fungi are already trying to do the work. The next question is how to help that process happen faster without turning your yard into a construction site. One of the simplest ways to speed up decay is to stop thinking of the stump as something you have to defeat in one afternoon. A stump is dead wood, or at least dying wood, and dead wood is food for bacteria, fungi, insects, and soil organisms. If you create the right conditions, they will slowly do the work for you. The easiest version of this is the cover and starve method. Cut the stump as low as you safely can, then cover it with a heavy black tarp, thick plastic, or even a durable rubber mat. Weigh the edges down with stones, bricks, soil, or mulch so light and airflow are reduced. Then, leave it alone. This is not exciting, but it works because you are changing the environment around the stump. Less light, less fresh air, trapped moisture, and steady contact with soil all help decay organisms move in. This method is best for people who do not need the stump gone immediately. It may take 6 months, a year, or longer depending on the type of wood, the size of the stump, and your climate. Softwoods break down faster. Fresh hardwood stumps can take much longer. But the cost is low. The risk is low. And once the cover is in place, there is almost nothing to do, except check it occasionally. You can improve the tarp method by adding moisture and organic matter. After cutting the stump low, cover the top with a layer of compost, old leaves, grass clippings, or wood chips before placing the tarp over it. The goal is not to make the yard look perfect right away. The goal is to turn that stump into a damp, dark feeding zone for the organisms that already know how to recycle wood. Another slow method starts before the tree is even cut down. It is called girdling or ring barking. The idea is to remove a complete ring of bark around the trunk, cutting through the living layer that moves sugars from the leaves down to the roots. When that connection is interrupted, the root system gradually weakens and dies. Later, when the tree is removed, the stump and roots have far less energy left in them. This method is not for every situation. A standing dead or dying tree can become dangerous, especially near a house road power line fence or anywhere people walk. If the tree is large, leaning, diseased, or close to anything valuable, this is not a casual homeowner project. But on rural land, in the right location, and with the right judgment, girdling has been used for a long time to make future stump removal easier. The important lesson is not that everyone should girdle trees. The lesson is that timing changes the difficulty. If you know a tree must come down eventually, and it is safe to let it decline, slowly weakening the root system before removal can make the stump less stubborn later. But safety comes first. A dead tree in the wrong place is not a money-saving trick. It is a liability. Now let's talk about one of the most interesting methods using mushrooms. Certain fungi naturally break down wood, and oyster mushrooms are one of the best-known examples for homeowners. Instead of treating the stump like trash, you treat it like a food source for mushroom mycelium. The fungus colonizes the wood, feeds on it, and slowly weakens the stump from the inside. The basic idea is simple. The stump is cut low, holes are drilled into the top, and sometimes the sides, and mushroom plug spawn or sawdust spawn is placed into those holes. The holes are sealed with wax to keep moisture in and help the mycelium establish. Then the stump is kept shaded and damp, while the fungus does what fungi do naturally. This is not an overnight fix. It may take a year or more for the stump to break down significantly, but it is one of the few methods where the stump can give you something back while it disappears. Under the right conditions, oyster mushrooms may fruit from the stump during the decay process. That makes this method especially interesting for people who like gardening, composting, or turning a yard problem into a small experiment. There are a few cautions. Only use mushroom spawn from a reputable supplier, and only harvest mushrooms if you are absolutely sure what they are. Do not guess with wild mushrooms. If you inoculate a stump with oyster mushroom spawn, you still need to be able to identify what grows later, because other fungi can also appear in the same area. When in doubt, do not eat it. The mushroom method works best on fresh hardwood stumps, especially species that fungi like to colonize. Very old dry stumps may be harder to colonize because other organisms may already be established, or the wood may not hold enough moisture. If the stump is in full sun, you may need to shade it or mulch around it. Fungi like damp-protected conditions, not dry wood baking in afternoon heat. Another simple biological method is to drill holes in the stump and keep it moist without adding anything fancy. The holes increase surface area, catch water, and give decay organisms more places to enter. If you pack those holes with compost or rich soil, you are basically inviting the underground recycling crew to move in. It will not be as targeted as mushroom inoculation, but it can help a stump soften faster than leaving a flat dry-cut surface exposed to the sun. You can also combine methods. Cut the stump, low drill holes, add compost, cover it with mulch, then place a tarp over the top. That gives you darkness, moisture, and biological activity all working together. This is often the best choice for a stump in a back corner of the yard where appearance does not matter for a while. And this is where the decision becomes personal. Some people want the stump gone this weekend. Some people just want it to stop being an eyesore. Some people are happy to let nature work if it saves money. The right answer depends on your timeline. If you can wait slow, decay methods are usually cheaper, quieter, safer, and easier than trying to overpower the stump in one day. But slow methods have one weakness: they require patience. You cannot cover a stump on Saturday and expect it to crumble by Monday. You are setting up conditions, then letting biology work at its own speed. That may not sound dramatic, but it is often exactly how the cheapest yard solutions work. They are not instant. They are consistent. There is one more category people ask about all the time: salts, hot water, and chemical stump removers. Some are useful. Some are overhyped. Some can damage nearby soil if you use them carelessly. And some older methods involving fire or explosives belong in the history books, not in a modern backyard. Salt-based methods are popular because they are cheap, simple, and easy to understand. The basic idea is to dry out the stump and make the wood less able to resist decay. But not all salts behave the same way in your yard, and this is where homeowners need to be careful. Epsom salt is usually the more garden-friendly option. It is magnesium sulfate, and people often use it because it pulls moisture from the stump while being less harsh on the surrounding soil than regular rock salt. The usual approach is to drill deep holes into the top of the cut stump, fill those holes with Epsom salt, add just enough water to moisten it, and then cover the stump so rain does not wash everything away immediately. Over time, the stump dries, weakens, and begins breaking down more easily. This is not an overnight solution. Depending on the wood, the stump size, the weather, and how fresh the stump is, it can take several months before the wood becomes soft enough to chop apart. But if you have a stump in a place where you eventually want to plant again, Epsom salt is often a better choice than regular salt. It is still something to use with control, not something to dump all over the bed, but it is less likely to leave the surrounding soil hostile to new plants. Then there is boiling water. This method is simple, but it works best on small stumps, shallow root crowns, and stubborn suckers rather than big old hardwood stumps. The idea is to expose part of the stump crown, and the shallow roots then pour boiling water directly where the living tissue is still active. Heat damages the cells, weakens the remaining root tissue, and can help a small stump decline faster. The advantage is that boiling water is cheap, legal, and does not leave a chemical residue. The disadvantage is that it is limited. A large stump is not going to vanish because you poured one kettle over it. This is a repeated treatment for smaller problems, not a miracle cure for a giant oak stump. Also, boiling water can kill grass, nearby plants, and beneficial soil life in the splash zone, so aim carefully and do not use it around roots you want to protect. Commercial stump remover is another category people see at hardware stores. Many of these products are designed to speed up decomposition by changing the chemistry of the wood. Some products have historically used potassium nitrate, which can help wood break down and become more porous over time. But the label matters. Products vary, laws vary, and you should follow the instructions on the package instead of copying backyard advice from strangers online. This is also where fire sometimes enters the conversation, and this is where we need to slow down. Some older stump removal methods involved treating the wood and later burning or smoldering the stump. That may have been common in some rural settings years ago, but it is not something every modern homeowner should try. Fire codes burn bans, air quality rules, dry weather underground roots, nearby fences, utility lines, and neighboring homes can turn a stump into a serious hazard. So the safe rule is simple: do not burn a stump unless it is legal in your area. Conditions are safe and you know exactly what you are doing. In many neighborhoods, the answer is simply no. A stump is not worth a fire call, a fine, or a damaged yard. So what should you actually choose? If the stump is large in the way and you need the ground usable, soon hire a professional or rent a grinder if you are comfortable operating the machine. That is the fast path. If the stump is small and accessible, dig around it, cut the roots, and pry it out. That is the cheap physical path. If the stump is low out of the way and you can wait, drill it, keep it damp, add compost, cover it, and let decay do the work. That is the patient path. If you want a more interesting biological method, consider mushroom inoculation with proper identification and food safety caution. That is the garden experiment path. If you want a salt method, choose based on what comes next. Use Epsom salt when you care more about the future soil. Use rock salt only where future planting does not matter much. Use boiling water only for small stumps and root suckers where heat can reach the tissue you are trying to kill. And be careful with any method near desirable trees, shrubs, garden beds, septic lines, irrigation buried cables, or utilities. The biggest mistake is not choosing the slow method or the fast method. The biggest mistake is choosing a method without looking at the stump first. Size matters. Species matters. Location matters. Your timeline matters. A stump in the middle of a new patio project is not a stump you treat for 12 months. A stump behind the shed does not need a $400 emergency solution if a tarp and time will solve it quietly. Here is the simple decision guide. Need it gone now. Grind it. Small enough to move, dig, and pry it. Too big, but not urgent. Cut it low and decay it. Want the lowest effort method? Cover it. Want to protect future planting soil? Be cautious with regular salt, and consider Epsom salt or biological decay instead. Want to burn it? Check the law first, and when in doubt, do not. A stump feels permanent because it looks solid, but wood is temporary. Roots weaken, moisture enters, fungi move in. Time does what machines do, just more slowly. Your job is to decide whether you want speed savings or simplicity. And that is the real lesson. You do not have to believe the most expensive option is the only option. Sometimes it is the right one. But sometimes the stump in your yard only needs a saw, a drill, a tarp, a little patience, and a plan that matches the problem. This week, pick one stump and study it before you spend money. Measure it. Look at what is around it. Decide whether you need speed or whether time can help you. Then choose one method and do it properly instead of trying 5 random tricks halfway. Thanks for watching Let Dusty Explains. If this helped you look at that old stump in your yard differently, subscribe to the channel. Around here we take practical home and garden problems and explain what actually works, why it works, and when a method is not worth the risk. Now tell me in the comments what kind of stump are you dealing with and which method would you try first.